Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason. Without my co-host for the evening, Dave, unfortunately, has, I think, the Platinum Draft tonight. Him and I may connect later and break it down if he's not too tired after wiping the floor with some high-stakes competition, as I'm sure he is attempting to do. So I brought in a ringer. I brought in somebody who knows their shit top to bottom. The person who finished second overall, almost first overall in TGFBI last year, Dylan White from Prospects Live. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an introduction. Thanks for having me, Justin.
An absolute pleasure. You were so close. It was like one of the coolest battles I think I've ever seen for an overall title coming down to the wire. You guys were trading, you and Tanner Bell were trading first place back and forth. I think within like hours of the last game of the season. Talk a little bit about like that experience.
It was tough. I was in first going into like the last half hour, and then like Logan Webb got a win for him, and that sealed it. He won by like 2.5 points, and then the Jays didn't make it. I'm in Toronto. The Jays didn't qualify for the playoffs, all within like 20 minutes. Ooh. And it was pretty much of a bummer. But no, it was great experience. I just to be in the conversation with Tanner and all the other guys up in the top. It was quite a ride.
Well, you shouldn't be bummed by it. I mean, I know you want to take it down, and you're that close. And I mean, I think your bad beat story is worse than most people's when you're talking about like an overall competition like that. But you should be pretty proud of yourself. I mean, to finish second place in the overall against 435 people. Are you going to repeat this year? Like, are you going to take that next step? You only have one spot to go up and 400 something spots to go down.
I mean, I think it's obvious I am.
So. Yeah, absolutely. You feel good about your team?
I didn't feel good about it after the draft. I kind of felt like I blew the draft. But Fantasy Pros or whatever gave me the A+, so I'm happy with that.
That's a bad sign. Fantasy Pros, yeah, that's the kiss of death, my friend.
No.
Yeah, getting the high grade from Fantasy Pros usually does not bode well. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then talk about what you do over at Prospects Live, because you guys have been killing it over there for the last few years.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is The Arrival with 2 underscores between the and Arrival. Long story for why that's my handle, but that's what it is. I'm on the Dynasty team at Prospects Live with me, Eddie Almaguer, Matt Thompson, and Justin Dunbar. So we're running like the Dynasty thing. We put out content every couple of weeks. In the off season, I was digging into the StatCast. We have minor league StatCast from 2021. So I've been doing some deep dives on sleepers, pitch arsenals, stuff like that. So we had a top 500 come out in January. We're going to have an update in a couple of weeks. And the rest of the Prospects Live team, like the amateur side for the draft and all that is top notch. So a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, if you're playing Dynasty especially, but even redraft, and you're not reading the stuff over at Prospects Live, you're absolutely missing out. Dave couldn't be here, but he did want me to ask you about your system for evaluating prospects in MLB. What is your system for
that? So I joined a Dynasty league a couple of years ago, and prospects were actually my weakness, and I really wanted to figure out how to get better at it without having to rely on like lists and sites. So Fangraphs has like downloadable minor league stuff, and so I started downloading and playing with the data. Like I'm kind of a data guy. I like spreadsheets and Z-scores and all that stuff, and I was trying to find correlations from year to year on like what type of profile does well, like what pitchers that do well, like what did they do in the minors? So like strikeout, walk ratio, all that stuff, ground ball rate. And so I would refine it over time. And so I had this thing that I called the formula. I used to tweet every so often. And that has been folded into Prospects Live now under the name RoboScout. So it's kind of the same things you'd see like Jordan Rosenblum or Ross Jensen do it with their scouting the stat line. It's basically taking minor league stats, which have correlations to major league success, applying age curves, applying all the curves for how old you are each level, and like what kind of major league equivalency those correspond to, and kind of coming up with a list purely quantitative, purely just results based, as opposed to like scouting by eye. So that's what I do there at Prospects Live. Like I said, we have StatCast too, so I've been trying to find correlations and fold that stuff in, kind of like the way Cardi puts in like StatCast for Bat X versus Bat. But yeah, it's strikeout to walk ratio, ISO, slugging, contact rate, all that sort of stuff that you've heard are correlated to major league success, the kind of things you want. Hit tools always important, blah blah blah. All kind of stuff like that gets folded into like one number.
It's awesome stuff, man. I really appreciate you guys, especially over at Prospects Live, doing the work for people like me, because I don't have time to dig into all those prospects, and I don't have the technical skills with computers to do that kind of work. So I appreciate you doing that kind of work and helping out the plebeians like me that clearly cannot. So definitely go follow Dylan over on Twitter. Go follow his work on Prospects Live. We're going to dig in to kind of some news, and then we're going to make some predictions on the season, kind of see what Dylan thinks is going to happen. Clearly, Dylan knows what he's talking about, right? Finished second overall in TGFBI, and he's got an A+ in Fantasy Pros this year to he's going to try to beat the curse. And we got people in the chat right now going crazy because moments before I hit the live button on this podcast, Austin Meadows was traded to the Tigers. This had been something Austin Meadows being traded had been rumored kind of all off season. I kind of forgot about it, honestly. But I think because we got such a late start to the hot stove, like teams are still kind of finalizing what they're going to do. And Austin Meadows is traded to the Tigers for Isaac Paredes, and I think a comp B pick. So what are your thoughts on Meadows in Detroit? How does this change the Detroit outfield? And then what do you see in Tampa Bay happening? Does this mean it's Josh Lowe season, as our friend Colin Weatherwax has thrown into the chat?
It just might be. I think it's showing Detroit's kind of pushing in, right? I mean, they have Torque on the opening day roster. They were going to have Riley Green, except he got injured, and maybe that speaks to that injury. Maybe he's going to be out longer than we thought. But now Austin Meadows is with his brother Parker. I kind of like what Detroit's doing. I like that they're pushing in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I wonder what happens once Riley Green's back, right? I mean, he's probably going to miss 2 months, so there's time to figure it out, right? So, but this may put a guy like Akil Baddoo kind of on the hot seat, right? I mean, if Riley Green gets healthy and Baddoo is still striking out a lot, or still struggling against lefties, like this could potentially put him on the hot seat. Gotta love it for Meadows. I think he may platoon, but I don't know if he will platoon in Detroit. It's not like they have super strong options to platoon with him. I guess Victor Reyes could. In terms of Tampa Bay, I think a lot of people are going to get really excited about Josh Lowe. I don't know that this means much about Josh Lowe, though. I guess we'll see. Like, I just don't trust Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they trust Josh Lowe. He should have been up last year, probably, arguably, and they sent him down pretty quickly, I thought, in spring training. But his spring training stats weren't very good. I took a look. His contact rate was down, and he had like his slugging percentage, I think, was down too. It's interesting that they went for Isaac Paredes. He's been a darling. Speaking of my formula for the minor leagues, he was always young for his level. His contact rates were always great. His barrel rates and his exit velocities are actually pretty good, even though I guess he's known as not having much power, not having much pop. But if the Rays are trading for him, I kind of sit up and kind of take notice.
That's good to know. I've got him in my dynasty league, and he was going to be kind of like on the bubble of my cuts here in the next couple days. So maybe I'll hold on to him and see what I can do with him. Because he was a guy I liked in the past, but it just never seem to come together in the short stints in the majors.
No, definitely not. But when you're talking about Badu, like Badu is not good against lefties. Meadows isn't very good against lefties too. So they're kind of yeah, it's not really helping out there. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I mean, I love that they're trading for him because he has such a high ceiling. But I wonder how it's going to shake out.
I wonder if there's another move coming too. Like, Justin Upton just got designated for assignment once he clears waivers because no one's going to claim him. He's still kind of a lefty killer a little bit. Not great against righties, but did a lot of damage in the last couple of years when he was healthy against lefties. I wonder if like he could be a good fit in Detroit as a platoon partner for a guy like Meadows. That might make sense. I don't know if Detroit's looking at something like that, or if maybe they think they can help Meadows solve things. We've seen guys leave Tampa Bay and get better because the batter's eye is so bad in Tampa. Who knows? Maybe part of the issue for a guy like Meadows is that batter's eye, and maybe he does get better in Comerica.
Yeah, could be. I mean, Comerica's not great for home runs, especially to center field. But yeah, I wonder. I mean, they've got Miggy, and he's kind of stuck in DH, and I kind of feel Upton's DH only at this point.
Probably.
So
the Angels did run him out in the outfield a fair amount last year because they had Ohtani. So
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Maybe there's just another move coming that we just don't know about. Maybe there's not. Maybe this is the team they're going to roll with. You gotta credit Tigers for, like you said, being willing to kind of push the chips in the middle and go, this is a winnable division. We may have lost Riley Green, but we still have Torkelson and a really young, nice pitching staff. So we're gonna make a go of it. I'm a little surprised it happened, 2 days before the start of the season, but there's still moves happening. Speaking of prospects that are very, very interesting, Bobby Witt Jr. makes the Royals. What are your expectations there on Bobby Witt Jr. this year?
I like that they did it. I like that they're rolling him out. It looks like number 2 in the batting order, at least in spring training. One of the things I did for Prospects Live is I ran some comps of some prospects that were going to be 2022 relevant. And so I looked at Bobby Witt's stats in AAA as a 21-year-old, and who did he compare certain stats, walk rate, strikeout rate, all that stuff, who he compared the most, the best to, who's the closest comp since 2010. And his 2 closest comps were Will Myers in 2013 and Will Myers in 2012. And so what I did was looked at what Will Myers' first 600 plate appearances were once he made it to the majors, to use that as kind of like a baseline idea of what Bobby Witt might do. And he had a 115 WRC plus, 267 average with 18 home runs and 8 stolen bases. So not the greatest.
I think people are going to be real disappointed if that's the end of the year stat line.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that would be his floor. Okay. Steamer has him 25, 22, something like that.
Something crazy, yeah.
So somewhere in between that. So 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 270 batting average is, pretty reasonable, I think. I'm definitely glad they did it. I kind of wish I had some shares. I don't have any shares. But he's gonna be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good too. The question for me is, what will the batting average be? And I know the strikeout rates haven't been egregious or anything recently in the minors for him, but you've never seen major league pitching until you've seen major league pitching, and it's so hard to know how the players are going to translate once they start seeing 100 on the black or sliders that just wipe people out. And so I'm a little skeptical of, especially in that park, is the power not going to be quite what we think it is? I think he's going to run. And I think he's probably going to steal, 15 to 25 bases, which will, soften kind of the floor no matter what. And there's no reason for the Royals not to just let him play. And the fact he's going to gain third base eligibility is fantastic. I haven't been able to pull the trigger where he was going. And I've got one more draft left, and I can't imagine he's going to fall even to the 4th round. In my last main event, and I just have a really hard time rationalizing passing up on guys like Francisco Lindor. Like, would in spite of the fact that I want to get a share of Bobby Witt Jr. before the end of draft season, like I just can't imagine passing up on guys like that for a really unproven talent, even though I think he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, we've been burned on Kelenic, we've been burned on Joe Adele. I think for good reason. We're a bit skeptical and hesitant. Like, I don't think Bobby Witt's ever had any adversity in his entire professional career. So, like, what happens, like you say, when he's in an over 20 slump or something like that? How does he bounce back? How does he make adjustments? Very good question. I think the Royals lineup is surprisingly deep. Like, they can drop them down to like 6th or 7th in the order to, let him, like, that's what they did with Mondesi last year too. Let him, find his swing, find his groove, take the pressure off, batting second. So I think ultimately his year line will be good. His line for the year will be good. But yeah, I haven't been able to pull the trigger. He was kind of 6th round ADP in the TGFBI time frame, and I kind of passed on that, and I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, looking back at it now, like I kind of wish I would have used like a 6th or 7th round pick on him, so I didn't feel compelled to use like a 3rd or 4th now, because I mean I haven't seen any boards of main events since the call up, but I'm sure I'll see a few before my last one on Wednesday. And I imagine he's going to be going pretty squarely in the 3rd round. And Anthony Gialdi just said another Witt bomb today. So I mean, the price goes up every time he does something special, which is it makes it a little bit more difficult for us.
Yeah.
We mentioned Spencer Torkelson. He has made the team in Detroit. What are your expectations there?
So following that same process I did where I found comps, his closest comp was Miguel Sano in 2015. And Sano's first 600 plate appearances were 256 batting average, 135 WRC plus with 32 bombs. So that's a nice little line if Torque can do that. And they've been batting him down in like 6 and 7. And I think with Meadows now too, he's not going to be able to be in the top 5 probably. So I like that spot for him. I think there's no pressure, like we said, and 30 home runs. Maybe that's a bit ambitious, but I expect 260 with 25 home runs, and that definitely plays.
Yeah, I'm sure the price is going up as we speak. Now that it's been announced he's going to be on the roster to start the year, but his price has actually been really, really affordable. It's like been outside the top 220 in drafts, even later into draft season. I think it makes him a much more interesting gamble, right? Like you're not having to pay a top 50 price tag on a guy like Torkelson. And I mean, he could win Rookie of the Year, right? He could be extremely valuable. He's got, the number 1 overall, moniker, in Detroit. So why not? I think I'd rather take the gamble on him because the price is so cheap and the replacement value is so nice at the first base position. If he does struggle and you do need to drop him, he's a guy that you can, I think, more easily replace at first base than maybe at shortstop or at third with Witt. So I really like Torkelson this year. I've got him on a couple teams. He's definitely a guy that I will consider targeting on Wednesday, like I said, with my last main event.
Yeah, like for the TGFBI draft, like the way I prep is I look at what the projections are saying, and then I compare that to ADP, kind of like I guess most people do. And Bobby Witt was a value in the 6th round. Torkelson, I think, was a 12th round ADP, and he was a value there. O'Neal Cruz was a value at 13th, and it's just I did not take any of them because, like, what if they don't make it? What if they're down for 2 months? I just couldn't justify it. And now I wish I took them, because if Torkelson's starting the season in the majors, he's definitely going to hit that value. So what his ADP is now in mains? Like, is he in the first 8 rounds, first 7 rounds?
I don't think he is. Last I checked, which I think was on Sunday, and I've got the main ADP up, but I want to update it if my computer will let me. As of yesterday, it was 250.
Okay.
Like that's a pretty damn good price. I mean, he's going around the aforementioned Miguel Sano, Luke Voigt, Nate Lowe, Jesus Aguilar. Those are the first basemen, the two first basemen going above him and two going behind him. I think you can make the argument he should be going above Frank Schwindel and Brandon Belt and Bobby Dahlbeck, maybe even Yuli Gurriel and teammate Jonathan Scope, who probably loses some playing time now that he's not needed at first base. So, I mean, I think Torkelson's still a pretty good value. I'd be interested to see if I can update it real quick, if there's been any. No, my other computer is. Oh, there we go. Sorry about this, guys. My other computer is running a little slow today. And see if it has. Doesn't look like it's changed any. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty good price. $250 for, guy, like you said, he kind of comps to Miguel Sano, and in his first season, $250 with 30 home runs. Will he fall short of that in the power? Maybe. Miguel Sano's got like legit like 80 grade power. It's just a matter of how much contact he's going to make. I don't know that Torkelson's necessarily got that kind of power in his bat, but I don't think it, I mean, who knows? Like, we have no idea how live the ball is going to be this year. Like, I mean, we've seen in the past, clearly every stadium is going to have a humidor in it this year. So, that's going to be helpful for power. So maybe it is another year we have a pretty live ball. So, like Torkelson a lot. I think I'm going to try to maybe get him on my next main if I can. And if not too many people in that league are listening right now.
Torkelson's stats in the minors are even better than Sano's. Like he had 36 home runs per 550 plate appearances, where Sano had 29. He had a slugging of 560 and Sano was 544. And Sano was 22 and Torkelson was 21. Like I try to find the same age. And so Torkelson was even younger. So he arguably has as much power as Sano. I mean, maybe not in real life, but he should be able to put up the same kind of power numbers.
I think he might have better contact skills, which might make up for the fact he might not have quite as much power. Yeah. So, teammate Riley Green breaks his foot. We kind of mentioned that a little bit already with the Meadows news. He's going to be out probably about 2 months, maybe longer, depending on how long it takes him to kind of get back up to speed and everything. If you drafted Riley Green in like a TGFBI situation, would you drop him? Because he got dropped in my TGFBI league when waivers ran yesterday.
He got dropped in mine too, and I thought about picking him up possibly next week as a stash, but I don't think so. Especially with this Meadows news, I don't know that he's guaranteed to be a full-time player when he comes back. And the comp that I found doing the same process that I keep talking about was Dylan Carlson, and Dylan Carlson's first 600 plate appearances were 250 batting average with 15 home runs, 101 WRC plus, not the greatest.
Yeah. People were pretty disappointed with the Dylan Carlson debut.
Yeah. And so that's what Riley Green at the same age was showing in the minors. So, maybe he's not going to be the second coming that we thought just based on historical comps. But I don't think I'd pick him up. I may throw a bid on him, but I'm not gonna put $100 down.
Yeah, I think especially in most formats. I mean, obviously in NFBC there's no IL, right? And there's no minor league slots. But because I believe he's on the minor league IL, he's not going to show up as on the IL for your ESPN, Yahoo, CBS leagues. Which means you can't stash him on an IL, which means if you want to hold on to him, unless you have minor league slots in a dynasty league, or I think Yahoo still has like the NA slot in some leagues. It's really, really hard to roster a guy like that, especially we've seen it really felt like the early part of spring training this year didn't have many injuries. And then all of a sudden the injuries have just hit pretty hard. I think it's, a reminder hey, stashing these injured guys is going to be a little bit more difficult, especially if you're playing in leagues with shallow bench spots or not a lot of IL spots. I hope for your home leagues, after going through COVID, everybody increased their IL spots, because I think it's really, really frustrating when you're playing in a league and you have to drop someone who's really good because you don't have an IL spot. As much as I know the industry as a whole has become very NFBC centric, I think one of the most frustrating parts about NFBC is not being able to hold on to your injured guys because you don't have IL spots.
Yeah, I was just talking to Tim McLeod just before the podcast, and he was saying how he really hates that format. He hates that there are no IL slots.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. Well, I mean, I love NFBC. The vast majority of my leagues are on NFBC now, but it is something that just sticks in my craw. Because like my not my TGFBI team, but my Barf League team right now, I lost Lance Lynn, who we're going to talk about here in a minute. I lost Chris Sale. I lost Luis Urias. And like somebody else is injured. And so like I had to drop, Jaron Duran got sent to the minors. And like, so like I had to drop Jaron Duran. I had to drop another guy just because I can't drop Lynn. I can't drop Sale. I can't drop Urias. So I've got to just, drop anybody else that has any sort of injuries or issues and just move on. And it's frustrating because someone else is probably going to scoop those kind of guys if they don't have the injuries that I have. And it's not like I've even got to play games yet. We drafted at the beginning of March, and now I'm already having to drop picks. So I mean, if you're in that situation, I'd probably drop Bradley Green too. If you're struggling with injuries, you try to hold on to him, but 2 months. Well, it's not a displaced fracture, so it doesn't need surgery. Hopefully, it'll be pretty straightforward. You never know with those kind of injuries. Yeah. And like, are they going to want him to run? Are they going to take it really slowly because he is part of that future? If they're a team that gets out of the gate, very hot, maybe they are. They try to push him. But if they falter, or they're a 500 team, as he's working his way back, they may kind of slow him down and say, hey, wait till the All-Star break.
For sure.
And can you hold on to a guy through July that you don't even know is going to be necessarily a difference maker? I don't know they can. A guy that I hope is a difference maker because I've rostered him in a number of leagues, including picking him up yesterday in TGFBI, is Stephen Kwan. He has made the Guardians. It looks like he's going to be in line for a starting role, potentially in left field. What are your thoughts on Stephen Kwan this year?
I like Stephen Kwan. I don't think he's going to light up the power and speed columns that much. I think he may be, like 12-12 type of thing. But with his contact ability, his hit tool, he's going to hit 280. So there's a lot of value there. I do like him. The comp I found for him was Michael Brantley, 2010, same age, 23. They had like swinging strike rate below 3%. So, Michael Brantley is a great asset on your team. So Stephen Kwan can be too.
Yeah, I like Kwan a lot. I think might even be a little bit more power than just 12 home runs in that bat too. But I think what you said is the most important part. Like his ability to make contact and not strike out is something that is really, really valuable in fantasy, but it's even more valuable in real life baseball, which can help him solidify a role in a pretty shaky Cleveland outfield. I mentioned this, I think the other day, I can't remember what podcast, it might have been Sleeper in the Bus. But like, there's no worse feeling than like touting a guy being like, this is going to be one of my guys this year. I really like him. And that was Bradley Zimmer for me. And he has just looked atrocious in spring. I mean, I didn't know that he could look any worse than he has previously in the major leagues when he struggled, but he's looked completely lost. Whereas Stephen Kwan has looked the exact opposite. I haven't checked what his stats were for today or yesterday, but prior to that, I believe in 27 at bats, he had not struck out once in spring training, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. He has a contact rate of 100% too, according to this StatCast.
That's insane. Obviously, we're not expecting him to do that once the season starts, but I think he's earned a starting role, and I think he's got the kind of skills that translate really well. And another, one of these guys where, and I talked about this recently, I've started to prioritize when looking at minor leaguers, really prioritizing guys who make really good contact over the guys who maybe have elite speed or elite power that maybe can't make as much contact, because with how MLB likes to liven up the ball, those guys the guys who make a lot of contact and good contact tend to pop when we have live balls. Brian Reynolds was a guy who was kind of like this, who was not expected necessarily to be a 20 homer guy, but just expected kind of like, hey, he's going to hit for a good average, but it's going to kind of be an empty batting average. Well, he's kind of become, a fantasy stud because he makes such good contact and the ball's been live. And I think that, Stephen Kwan can be that kind of guy. I don't know what, is he going to be a 20 homer guy? Maybe not, but yeah, 15, 17 homers, chip in 10 to 15 stolen bases with a good batting average. Like, that's a perfect glue guy, and he's still going pretty cheap in drafts right now. So, like I said, I got aggressive yesterday in TGFBI and picked up Stephen Kwan, and I had already drafted him, I think, in both my main event and my auction championship, at least one of them. I can't remember if it was both or one, but I like Kwan a lot, and I'm saying goodbye to my Bradley Zimmer shares. And I apologize to everyone who has drafted him, because even though I think there's a legit shot he gets DFA'd. Like, that's how bad he's been this spring. And so I just can't hold on to him in the leagues where I'm allowed to cut people.
But no, like you said, hit tool is the most important thing for the minor leaguers. I mean, like Jake Cronenworth, Jeff McNeil, like these guys who aren't that touted in the minors, they come up and they're fantasy contributors. Like if Stephen Kwan's Jake Cronenworth, that's going to help your team, definitely, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's not like, Cronenworth always had the struggles of like trying to weasel his way into a pretty good lineup in San Diego. That's not going to be an issue for Kwan if he continues to hit. Like, Cleveland is not like guys like Bradley Zimmer and Oscar Mercado and Josh Naylor are not going to like keep Kwan from getting playing time in the way that, Cronenworth really had to prove himself. I think Kwan's going to get the opportunity a lot quicker than Cronenworth did. I love Cronenworth. I think Cronenworth's still an underrated guy, especially with his triple eligibility. People don't give him enough respect. Moving away from prospects for a second, Lance Lynn hurts his knee. When I originally put this on the rundown for you, we didn't know exactly what the diagnosis was. We know now that he's going to get surgery. He's likely going to miss about 2 months of the season, 1 month before he can even start pitching again, and then probably about a month worth of ramp-up time. I know that he fell to like the 23rd round of a main event yesterday because Paul Sporer and Colin Weatherwax, I believe, were in that one and took him. Would you even touch Lance Lynn? Obviously, you're holding on to him, but like if you've already drafted him, but let's say you've got a late draft, is this a guy that you're looking at maybe taking a dart throw late in the draft?
Yeah, I think so. I have to do the math. I think you do the thing where, like, for the first third, you have like a replacement pitcher. So like, I don't know, like a Brubaker or something, or Luke Weaver, and then 2/3 of a season of Lance Lynn, and you combine them to see what that's worth. I think because it's a knee, it's better than an arm, obviously, but this is the knee that he hurt, but he was playing through pain last year, I think, too. So maybe he should be back to just what we expected Lance Lynn to be once he finally comes back. So I would take a shot on him, I think.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that. And it's not his plant leg, so hopefully that means we won't have to worry about like him re-injuring it because he's landing too hard on it. It's his push-off leg. I mean, who knows? Like I don't know exactly. They just said he's repairing a tendon. They didn't say what tendon it is either. Mm-hmm. So like it's there's different tendons that have different responsibilities in the knee. So without that kind of knowledge, it's hard to kind of make a guess. I'd take a gamble. I love Lance Lynn. Like, I really love Lance Lynn. I mean, I've been lucky that I only took him in a couple early drafts, and then I just wasn't in a position to get him in my more expensive and more recent drafts. But if he's one of those guys that falls, late in a draft, I might take a gamble if I don't have any other stashes. I'd rather take the gamble on him than maybe take it, 5, 6, 7 rounds earlier on a Jacob deGrom. Or 5 rounds earlier on Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's an arm, right? That's scarier.
Yeah,
way scarier.
And I took Jack Flaherty, I think, in the 19th round in the main event. So yeah, I mean, if I can get Lance Lynn later than that, I'm probably going to take that gamble because at least we have a timeline there, right? We know when they are expecting Lance Lynn to be back. Flaherty, we have no idea. Like, that may just be a completely wasted pick. We may find out in a month that he's getting surgery and he's done. Yeah. So,
But how about the White Sox? They trade Kimbrel, they lose Lynn. Garrett Crochet is getting Tommy John.
Yeah,
like they're kind of like they have Keuchel in the rotation, and now they have to probably put in like Velasquez or Ronaldo Lopez. Like
I think it's Velasquez. I'm a little surprised they're not making a move on Montas.
Yeah,
and maybe they do. Maybe we find out tomorrow or Wednesday that they're going to make a play on Monty, especially when you see, we'll get to it in a second with Sean Manaea being traded to San Diego. Like the return the A's got for Sean Manaea, the White Sox have to be kicking themselves that they didn't jump in on that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely way cheap. But the White Sox farm system is not very good. So they don't really have that many chips that they can give. But still, I mean,
they got Andrew Vaughn, who they have Andrew Vaughn, who they seemingly do not like for some reason.
Yeah. That would be an interesting trade, Vaughn for Montas, with some peripheral prospects thrown in.
Yeah, I'm sure there would have to be. I don't know how many years Montas has left on his contract. I want to say 2, but I mean Vaughn for Montas with maybe some kind of minor pieces going back one way or another. I mean, if they're not going to play Vaughn, like, why would you continue to just like let him rot on the bench? I mean, I guess Vaughn's more of a play for next year when Jose Abreu is a free agent because they can just slot him straight into first base. But maybe that's not what the White Sox want to do. But I don't know. I mean, considering I think the A's just got the Padres like 22nd and like 19th ranked prospects for a year of Sean Manaea. You got to think the White Sox got something close to that to give for Montas, but who knows? Back to prospects, Matt Brash. He is going to make his major league debut. How excited are you on Matt Brash?
I'm pretty excited. His arsenal, like his StatCast arsenal in the minor leagues was pretty impressive. It's very much like Dylan Cease. And I'm sure you've seen the pitching ninja gifs, how that slider is deadly. My concern with Brash is he doesn't go that deep in through a game. So he may be like a 5 and dive guy. So there may be a bunch of wins that you're not going to get. But he definitely went for a lot of money yesterday in all the fabs. I ended up not getting him. I got Reed Detmers, but it's I'm very excited to see what he does. Like, I like what the Mariners are doing, obviously, with Julio Rodriguez making the club. I think George Kirby's going to be up later too. Like, I like the moves they're making, and I like that they're trying. So I wish him all the luck, and I hope he does very well.
Yeah, I have not drafted him yet this year. He's definitely a guy who could be in play for me again on Wednesday. And I was not able to. I think he went for like $120 something in my TGFBI league. I wasn't willing to do that, though. I mean, I put $60 on Abrams, and there was no second bid in my league, which shocked me considering I've got Shelly V, who's a prospect person, and King Doe, who loves prospects, and somehow I got nobody wanted to bid on Abrams. But anyways, on Brash, I like that Dylan Cease comp. That's when I've kind of watched him pitch and looked into it, that's I've said like it's a guy with an electric slider, and I mean 3 good pitches, and a fourth that he can throw a fourth. But I do wonder about like what his command and control is going to be like at the majors. Are we going to see from start to start his struggle with walks or home runs? It's great that he's pitched in Seattle. It's a nice place nice park to pitch in. I assume they're going to go back to the 6-man rotation, though. That's honestly, I haven't really thought about it too much. But they did run with a 6-man a lot last year, so I would assume that they may run with that at some point, if not to start the season again. So if he's not going to go deep into games, and then if they do run a 6-man rotation, that makes him a little bit less attractive. It's still really interesting upside because I think there's going to be a lot of strikeouts.
For sure.
So, like, I mean, there's at least that kind of cushion, to go along with the profile. The only problem is if he struggles, they've got other guys in the high minors that are really, really good too. I think he's unlike maybe a guy like Reed Detmers, who you just mentioned, who made the rotation as well. The Angels don't have a ton of, great pitching in the high minors in the same way that, they have in Seattle. So, like, I think Reed Detmer's rotation spot may be a little bit safer than a guy like Brash. But I think he's worth a gamble. And I'm looking forward to watching him pitch. Like I said, I'm not going to necessarily ignore him on draft day on Wednesday, but he's not necessarily a big target for me either. So I my guess is I won't get him.
Like, the knock on him is supposedly his control too, but if you look at each of his pitches, his strike percentage is actually higher. Like, the strike percentage he has assumes that he would have more strikeouts and less walks than he does. So I think it's more of a, like, he's trying to, like, lure the batters to swing out of the zone, like on the slider or the curveball. And you mentioned he has 3 good pitches. He actually has 4 good pitches. His changeup, which he throws the least, was the most effective for him in the minors. What I did is I look at, like, the xwOBA and whiff percentage of each pitch that he throws, and he had double plus whiffs. Like, his whiff percentage on the changeup was like 2 standard deviations better than the average changeup at that level. And his xwOBA was what I call a 65. So, like, 1.5 standard deviations above. So he has like 4 pitches that are all above average. And, like, as much as the slider gets all the buzz, and it rightfully does with all that movement, it's like his fastball can hit 100. It's an above average pitch. The curveball is above average, and the changeup, like I said, is possibly double plus when he throws it. So he has a extremely high ceiling. I'm just worried about how many innings they're going to let him throw for the season and then per game. But, like, they could put him in the bullpen, and he can be like Aaron Ashby was, kind of like last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned it before. The White Sox did trade Craig Kimbrell to the Dodgers for AJ Pollock. This was a move that I think people were expecting kind of all along, that the White Sox were going to trade Kimbrell at some point. It got to the point, though, where it was so late in draft season, I think people, including myself, kind of gave up on it. Literally the day before the White Sox traded him, I moved him down in my ranks. I went, I can't justify him being here anymore, because it seems like the White Sox are just going to move into the season with Kimbrell. Then he's, of course, traded the next day. What are your thoughts on Kimbrell in LA? Is he a top 5 closer, 5-6 closer for you? And what does this do for AJ Pollock in Chicago?
The Kimbrell thing, yes, I think he's got to be top 6. He got rocked, though, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, like the day after he was traded, he got rocked by the Giants.
Very nice. But I think, he's got to be the closer there, I think. Pollock, just based on projections, it looks like his value went down. I didn't dig in too much why. I don't know if it was playing time or not, but I just like we just talked about with the White Sox, I don't know what they're doing. Like, they really don't like Vaughn, and they're trading pitching when now in hindsight they kind of need pitching. It just seems weird. Like, their hitting lineup is excellent, and then they're just trying to add to it. It just seems weird for a team that's supposedly, like, trying to make a World Series run right now. Just I don't know. Just seems very odd to me. Very perplexing.
I think they just wanted something for their major league team, and this is what they could get. Like, that's what it, I think that may have just kind of what it, at first I thought, like, hey, this move means another move is coming. I don't know what that other move is, but apparently not. I thought maybe, hey, Kimbrell, like, moving Kimbrell's contract means they can go after Montas, or go after a Manaea, but it hasn't borne out yet. But like I said before, like, with the offseason being, kind of, partially canceled because of the lockout, maybe there is another move coming. I really don't know what the White Sox are doing. In some ways, I think this is good news for Pollock because I think he plays more in Chicago. But I think that's also bad news for Pollock because the Dodgers did a really good job of not playing him so much that he got hurt. And they really were able to maximize his usage. I don't know that I trust the White Sox to do that. And I worry that Pollock will miss more time on the White Sox than he will on the Dodgers. Pollock is a guy that, when he's on the field in your daily moves leagues, like he's pretty valuable because you put him on your reserve, your bench, your reserve list when he's not playing, and then use him when he is. I do worry that the White Sox are not going to be able to optimize him in the same way that the Dodgers did. And while the White Sox are still good, it's not as good as that Dodgers lineup, which means he may hit higher than he might have in LA, but it's still not going to be as good of a supporting cast. So I wasn't drafting a lot of Pollock before. I'm probably not going to draft him now. So, but Kimbrel, I mean, you got to love it. I mean, he's moving to the best team in baseball. As much as a Giants fan, I hate saying those words. On paper, they are the best team in baseball right now. And a guy who is going to be the full-time closer on the best team in baseball is going to be in line for a lot of saves. There's obviously some risks, so I can't move him up into that elite category. I think I put him at closer number 6 in my ranks, just because we have seen him be pretty shaky off and on over the last 3-4 years. But when he's pitching well, man, there's very few pitchers, relief pitchers in baseball as good. So, and being on that Dodgers team and Dave Roberts, for all his faults as a manager, we saw how he managed that bullpen in season with Kenley Jansen. Even when Kenley was struggling, he stuck with Kenley. So that gives me a little bit of vote of confidence that even if Kimbrel struggles maybe a little bit, that they'll probably stick with Kimbrel unless he completely falls apart. So I think it's a pretty good move for him.
Yeah, I mean, that Dodgers bullpen is so strong that even if he does struggle, like you have Treinen and Alex Vesia and Brusdar Grotto, like all those guys are going to get a bunch of outs for you. So by the time you're throwing in the 9th, like you only have to get the 3 outs. And yeah, I wanted to see how Pollock would do in the NL with the DH now. Like you're saying how they hide him well. Like I was assuming he was going to get a lot of DH days. Now in the AL, I mean, they always have the DH, but like you said, I wonder how he's going to do, because on a per plate appearance per game basis, like you said, he was very good. But it was because he was judiciously being used and in platoons and stuff. So I'm just curious how it's going to do. I have him in a dynasty league and I like him, but I don't have as high hopes as I did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's hard because I mean the White Sox use that DH for guys like Gavin Sheets and to keep Grandal in the lineup on the days where he's not catching. And so I just don't know that there's going to be enough DH time for Pollock. I think they're just going to say, hey, you're going to stay in the outfield. And that just scares me with his injury history. So yeah, I'm going to continue to fade Pollock, unfortunately. Back to prospects. Julio Rodriguez makes the Mariners. That is the big news of the day. I am ecstatic because I have him in a number of leagues, including Tout Wars, where I got him for $2 in the Tout Wars mixed auction. And so I really, really needed him to be on that opening day roster, and I'm excited to see what he can do. What are your thoughts on Julio Rodriguez?
I mean, you gotta love him, and you gotta love that the Mariners brought him up. I was doing this thing for Prospects Live where you try to project what's the probability that a minor leaguer is going to be successful in the majors. And in AA, his numbers were like 88% chance that he's going to be an above average hitter, which it was like kind of through the roof. He was like by far like the number one hitter in AA. So I'm very excited. I'm glad he's going to play the whole season. I mean, what do we got here? I'm looking at the projections. So Depth charts has him 21 homers, 15 stolen bases, 277 batting average, 124 WRC plus. Like that, that's going to work. He's going to probably start, like they said, I think batting sixth in the lineup, but I expect he'll be, probably clean up by August.
Yeah, I would be.
Second.
Yeah, he could be. Yeah, he could be hitting really high up in that lineup, and I don't know that it's going to take till August. My hope is by the end of May, he's hitting higher up in that lineup. I mean, he could be an absolute monster. I mean, there's obviously risk. We saw it with his teammate Kelnick last year, right? A guy we all, most people in the industry, including myself, thought was going to be great right away. I'll be interested to see where he goes in some of the mains. I kind of threw it out on Twitter earlier today when they made the announcement that he's now going to be a 5th round pick in main events. And I kind of stand by it. I have yet to, I'll be updating my own personal ranks and on my Patreon tonight. And we'll see if he ends up falling in that 5th round range for me. But yeah, I thoroughly expect him to be going in the 5th round of drafts or right around there. So if you bought in early and got him in the 18th round, 19th rounds of drafts, a few weeks ago, a month ago, you should be doing the happy dance right now and enjoy it because it's going to be a fun ride. There were a few trades that happened. First, let's talk about Sulcer and Tanner Scott being traded to the Marlins. This one kind of came out of nowhere. Two teams that I don't think people really expect to be competing or making moves like this, at least to each other. The Orioles trade the guy that people thought was going to be the closer in Baltimore and the potential, dark horse guy who could close games in Baltimore to a team that is missing their closer because Dylan Floro is on the IL in Miami, and people were starting to get excited about Anthony Bender. What do you make of the Florida Marlins or Miami Marlins? What are they now? And their closing situation, and what do you make of now the Baltimore closing situation?
Well, the Baltimore closing situation is terrible. Like I didn't even put any bids on Dylan Tate. I think there's talk like this Felix Bautista guy who throws 100. He's like a dark horse potential closer by the end of the season. I don't really see it. His control's a bit off. So I'm completely avoiding the Baltimore thing. The funny thing is I saw the original tweet was like Tanner Scott traded to the Marlins. I'm like, okay, so Cole Sulcer for sure is like locked in, and maybe even Tanner Scott now is going to be the Marlins closer. And then it's like, and Cole Sulcer. So I think the Marlins, I think they're pretty progressive in the way they handle lineups and bullpens and stuff. So they may just do like a closer by committee, bullpen by committee the whole season. They didn't really settle on a closer much last year. By the end, I guess it was Floro, but Bender was doing well. I think Richard Blyer, was he on that team too? Like he was doing well in StatCast stuff. I could just see them like kind of being like the Rays, where they just have like they match up in the later innings, and then whoever ends up closing or finishing the game gets the save. So I'm kind of steering clear of that too. I do like Sulcer though. Like he puts up pretty solid numbers. So like if I had to have someone, I guess it would be him.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to make of that whole situation. I guess you might be right. It might be Sulcer, but like I said, it could be just about anybody in that bullpen. I wonder if this means that there's something maybe more wrong with Floro than we expect. To make a trade like this to pick up not just one but 2 extra arms in that bullpen makes me a little scared for all my Dylan Floro shares. In terms of Baltimore, Paul Fry maybe.
Yeah, I mean he did it before.
He's done it before. They wouldn't have to worry about ratcheting up anybody's arbitration numbers. I know people are getting excited about Dylan Tate, who's a former 1st round pick. But the Orioles will do exactly what you don't want them to do. And so therefore I'm going to guess it's Paul Fry. I don't want to draft anybody or bank on anybody in the Baltimore pen. But I think if I was going to, I think it'd probably be Paul Fry.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. I took Tyler Wells in TGFBI thinking he would be the closer for sure, and now they're moving him into the rotation, and like
Yeah, where
he's
he's
not
going
going
to
to
throw
do.
3 inning games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I don't know what are they doing. I don't know what they're doing. So
I don't know what they're
it's a
doing. I
mess.
don't know what the Red Sox are doing. Yeah, I don't know what a lot of teams are doing anymore. Who knows? Another trade, much more interesting trade, is Sean Manaea to the Padres. We mentioned, kind of allude to it before. The prospect going back, I don't think they're necessarily worth talking about at this point. If you've got an insight to them, you're more than welcome to give your insight. But I know very little about them, just what I've read, kind of in passing, since the deal has gone on. But Sean Manaea, that's a pretty big arm. What do you think that does for him in San Diego and kind of for the entire Padres rotation? Because they're kind of stacked now.
Yeah, I think Paddock must be on the move. He's going to be traded. I think they have too many arms there.
Mm-hmm.
Clevenger, maybe like they can slow play him too. I guess he has a knee problem or something now.
Yeah, he's hitting the IL too. So yeah.
They also had Nick Martinez. Once I saw the Manaea trade, I had some bids in for Nick Martinez just because he's in the Padres rotation. He's going to get some wins, but now I think he's. I'm a bit worried about him, like putting up the numbers that over the season that we'd expect. So I pulled my bids. I like it. You can never have too much pitching. And like Uribiel Angales, who's who the Padres traded, got a very good hit tool, like a 60 grade hit tool, and he's got good makeup. Like his teammates really like him. Kind of exactly an Oakland Athletics type guy who's not that touted, but has like a very good hit tool or like one very good skill. Kind of a misfit. He's not the biggest guy. So it's a nice little player for the Athletics. I don't think he's worth Sean Manaea, but it's only 1 year, and obviously they're selling everybody off. But I can't believe that's like the Padres are the only team that would offer something like that to the A's. I don't know. I can't believe like the Jays could use Sean Manaea. The White Sox, as we've said, could use Sean Manaea. There's so many teams.
I thought the Twins were the perfect
Twins.
fit. They, a whole right-handed rotation. Mm-hmm. They seem to be kind of pushing their chips in a bit with the Correa signing. I thought it made a lot of sense for a team like the Twins, and I can't imagine that this was like the best deal the A's could have gotten. Maybe it was. I mean, I'm sure the A's did their due diligence, but considering what other guys have been traded for this offseason, I just don't understand. Maybe they just really like the guys they got from the Padres way better than other people who aren't on the A's staff. And maybe to them they're getting some really good talent that we're not seeing. But I mean, I like this. With Clevenger starting the year on the IL, that's a bit concerning, though. Thankfully, it's not like the surgically repaired elbow, and it is supposedly a knee issue. I'm just wondering, the news about his knee and him hitting the IL came out really quickly after this trade, and you have to wonder if maybe something's worse than we're expecting. Like you said, Paddock has been rumored to be on the move. So I'm sure, that will get figured out one way or another. I think Nick Martinez's role is safe for right now. They did sign him to a 3-year contract. So at least I'm hoping, because I've got him in a lot of leagues. So I like Nick Martinez a lot this year. Hoping that he can pay me back for all the damage he did to my Dynasty League teams years ago before he went off to Japan. Next one is one that you filled me in on. Diego Castillo of the Pirates makes the team. Talk to me about Diego Castillo of the Pirates.
He was in the tie-on deal with the Yankees. Another good Yankee infielder that they just have so many of that they could trade. His numbers were pretty good in the minors. Good exit velocities, good barrel rates, pretty good contact. He is a guy I wanted in a bunch of my dynasty leagues, but he was taken by some savvy people who were onto his strong spring training, and it looks like the Pirates like him. They've been playing him at second, they've been playing him at third, they played him in the outfield, I think, today. They sent down like Rodolfo Castro, who played last year. O'Neal Cruz obviously is down too. So they like Diego Castillo. He was like the key part of the tie on trade. So like they actively like him. So I'm curious to see what he can do. I would probably bid for him next week, just because I think he's going to start. I don't think he's going to be bench. They have Kevin Newman, they have Cole Tucker. I think they're going to kind of rotate in, but I think Diego Castillo, because he can play all those positions too. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a hunch. Maybe I don't really have anything behind it, but I think they like him and they're trying to get him in the lineup. And they've already announced that he's made the team. So I think they're going to try to have his bat in there.
Yeah, I literally know nothing about him. And I'm not going to pretend like I do. And so I'm glad you came on. I wouldn't have even concluded him in the rundown had you not mentioned something. So definitely a guy I will be paying attention to early on. I don't like that he's blocking my boy O'Neal Cruz, who I'm so excited about. I've got on so many teams, and I really need him to be up soon. Do you think O'Neal Cruz is up soon?
I think he'll be up soon. I think he'll be up before May. I think he'll be up in April. I think
I saw the 23rd was the kind of the date of arbitration that got teams get the extra year of service time.
So he'll magically be up on the 24th. He'll have solved his defense.
Yeah, he'll have solved his defensive woes.
I'm really looking forward to O'Neal Cruz. He kind of broke my model with his AAA, like 5 home runs and 22 plate appearances or whatever. And like just those exit velocities are ridiculous. I want to see it a 6-7 shortstop in the majors.
I mean, do you think he stays at shortstop?
Probably not.
Yeah.
They'll start him at shortstop, I think.
Yeah.
But I think like by next year he'll
be
outfield.
Super athletic. Like I think, I mean, as he gets older and puts on weight, I don't think he stays at shortstop. Maybe moves out into the outfield, or they're trying to sign Brian Hayes to a long-term deal. So I don't know that he's going to move over to third, but for right now, man, he is going to be so exciting to watch. You just don't see guys that size playing shortstop. And like you said, the exit velocities are out of this world. Matt showed me some of his exit velocities. Not coming into this year, but coming last year when, during the season, he was like, dude, check these. He gave me a blind resume. He's like, check out these exit velocities and try to figure it out. And I was like, I don't know, but whoever it is a monster. He's like, it's O'Neal Cruz. I was like, oh crap. So I've got him in my one dynasty league, and then I've got him in Tout Wars and a few NFBC leagues. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to O'Neal Cruz when he does arrive and he's magically fixed whatever issues they told him he has to have to go down.
I mean, he has 20 stolen base speed too. Like, so he's not like he's got a high floor. So he'll contribute even if he's striking out a lot. He'll still contribute on the bases.
Absolutely. Last move we'll talk before we get into some kind of in-season topics. Reese McGuire was traded to the White Sox for Zach Collins back over to Toronto. Do you care about this at all?
Not really. I think it was McGuire's out of options and Collins has an option, and there's too many catchers in Toronto right now, especially with Gabriel Moreno knocking on the door, and they have Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen. So it was just a matter of time, and so they bought a year by trading.
Yeah, I think Collins probably stays up with the team while the rosters are at 28, and when they revert back to 26, he goes down to the minor leagues. Collins is one of those guys that I love the bat. I just don't know that he's ever going to get the opportunity that he probably needs to show how good that bat potentially could be in a full-time role. But hopefully, I think this just means Alejandro Kirk's role is a little bit safer. But I wonder if that means he catches more. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I heard some people are like, yeah, this is great for Kirk. And then some people saying this isn't good for Kirk. So I think it's good for Kirk. I don't think they're getting Collins to catch or to like. No,
Collins isn't a very good catcher.
Yeah, exactly. It was just they had to get rid of McGuire and they wanted to get something back. And so that's my read.
Yeah, that was mine as well. Let's talk about some kind of early season approaches. Like I said, you did really, really well in TGFBI last year. So I kind of trust your approach a little bit better than my mediocre resume in TGFBI. How do you approach the early season? Do you have like, some people kind of just say, hey, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy the games. I'm not going to worry about numbers. I'm not going to worry about, this or that. It's too small of samples. And some people are like, hey, I'm making sure I'm in on every single thing. What is your approach personally to the early season?
I sit back and try not to make any rash moves in the first few weeks. If I had Luis Castillo last year, who notoriously started off terribly, I would have still held on to him. I wouldn't have dropped him or anything. I might have put him on the bench, but I'm not going to make any moves. The last thing I would do, I'm very risk averse, is to like drop someone who then goes on a tear. So I'm always looking at the projections, because they smooth out the small sample variation. They go more on historical. So I kind of sit back and watch. A good thing to do in April, like when the season starts, is use the rolling averages on Fangraphs.
Mm-hmm.
So if some guy's doing very badly and it's say April 23rd and the season starts April 7th, so that's whatever that is, 16 games. You set the frequency at 16 games, and you see if his strikeout rate or walk rate or xWOB or hard hit rate or whatever you're picking has ever been that low or that high in his career on that thing. And you can see if this is within his sort of his variation of his career. That's always a good thing to do at the beginning of the year. So I do that, and that kind of helps make me not overreact.
I like that. I have in the past been the guy that says I don't really care too much about anything in the first few weeks of the season. I just want to watch the games. Like I've been missing real baseball for 6 months. I just want to watch the games. I don't want to be the person that overreacts to Didi Gregorius's, huge first 2 weeks of the season and then spends a bunch in Fab and he turns back into Didi Gregorius, or like Luis Castillo. Corey Kluber's been, one for years, right? That always starts off slow and people freak out, and then he ends up turning it back around. So at the same time, I found that maybe I need to be a little bit more aggressive. So do you have an approach in terms of your Fab? Do you get aggressive on guys in Fab earlier on because you get to keep them on your team for longer?
I tend not to. When I draft my teams, my bench is not usually specs. It's not usually high upside plays, and maybe that's a problem. It's always depth. So like I only have one shortstop, so I need a shortstop on the bench. Oh, I only have one outfielder on the bench, so whatever. So I make sure that if any of my starting roster is injured, I can plug someone in without having to rely on Fab that week. So, and I tend to pick those guys on the bench that are going to have playing time. So like I have Miguel Rojas as my backup. I have like Patrick Wisdom, third base backup, who theoretically should be playing, most of the season. I got Tyler Naquin, who should be playing most of the season. So what happens is when these like Matt Brashes and all that come up, I don't want to like drop Miguel Rojas because that leaves me a hole. So that's kind of what my Fab approach is just if I let me give you an example. So as I'm doing the draft in TGFBI, I have like the standings updated, kind of like the Smata sheet, but I have my own for my league. And after the draft, I take out each player I have and plug in who the replacement would be and see how much the standings are changed. So like I have Mitch Garver at catcher. If I take him out and I put in Luis Torrens, oh wow, I lose like 12 standing points. And so what if I put in Kyle Higashioka instead? It's like, oh, I only lose 3. So I drop Torrens for Higashioka. Like I'm trying to like minimize the damage each player would cause me. And so I do my Fab based on that. So like if I lose Garrett Cole and I have to put in JT Brubaker, I'm going to lose 18 standing points. But if I put in Raver San Martin or Luke Weaver or Jose Quintana, I'm also going to lose 20 standing points. So it doesn't really matter who my backup pitcher is. So like I make my decisions based on that. So I'm kind of trying to be like quantitative and objective in how I do it. But what ends up happening is I don't take those shots on the Brashes or like these guys that'll come up, Diego Castillo, because I think I'd rather be safer with Yandy Diaz than Diego Castillo type of thing. So that's how I do my Fab.
Yeah, I'm trying to be more aggressive than I have traditionally been. It was something that I learned a little bit in the 2020 season, right? Because it was such a small season and short season that you had to be aggressive quickly and make quick decisions. And it was super uncomfortable for me, but it also it gave me a little bit of experience doing it. And I think it made me a little bit more successful a player, and it kind of bore out last year where I was more aggressive. I tend to try to be more aggressive on the hitting side than the pitching side, because I know a lot of people like to stream early and stuff with pitchers. I tend to be I do stream early, but I tend to be a lot more conservative with my streams because I don't want to blow my ratios early. If I need to become really aggressive later in the season, I'll do that, because then I'm throwing darts, I'm throwing Hail Marys. But I try to protect my ratios for the best of my ability early on, so I'm not put in a position where I have to make moves later. Whereas with my hitters, I tend to be a little bit more aggressive now, just because I'm not as worried about them blowing my batting average. Like, that's one stat as opposed to two on the pitching side. So, that's just kind of the way I go about it. And I was aggressive in Fab on the hitter side this last run. Picked up CJ Abrams in a couple leagues and Stephen Kwan in a few leagues. We'll see how it works out. Maybe I should have been more aggressive on the Matt Brashes of the world, but like I said, I tend to be a little bit more conservative on the pitching side early on as opposed to the hitting side.
Yeah, I think it's the pitching is just too variable. Like, you can't just expect the person's going to be good that you pick up, and so you can't really gamble on it. Whereas the hitters, they are typically, it seems like they're more successful right out of the gate rather than a pitcher.
Yeah.
But I did the same thing. So I try to pad my rate stats, my whip and ERA and batting average, so that if I have to stream at the end, I can get the Ks and the wins and the power without hurting those rate stats. So I tend to lean to being way more conservative at the front. So I'll have the Chad Greens and Jonathan Loisiga in my, I roster them at the beginning and don't stream at all, just so I can get a nice cushion, and then so I can stream at the end if I need to.
Yeah, and I think that might work out a lot better this year, especially considering, I think, coming off of that, going from the shortened season to the 162 game season last year, there's been talk that teams are going to be a little bit more conservative early on with their starting pitchers anyways. And so those middle relievers might get some sneaky wins that maybe people aren't expecting. So it might actually be more beneficial to start off with the Chad Greens and the Brent Suitors of the world to try to steal some kind of sneaky early wins. And then once you've built up those ratios, stream a little bit more, four wins and strikeouts via starters. So I'm with you on that. When do you start caring about underlying statistics or even surface statistics? We don't want to overreact to small samples and numbers, but what point do you start really going, okay, this means something to me?
I'm always looking at them. I download the stats from Fangraphs every other day, twice a week, and I put them into my spreadsheet, and I do all the Z-score stuff. So I'm always checking out contact rates and exit velocities and strikeout to walk ratios, all that stuff, just to see if someone's performance, good or bad, is quote unquote supported by the underlying numbers. But I rely heavily on the projections. So I look at the rest of season projections first, and then I look at the underlying to see if it's supported or not. So it's more like if I'm making a decision, if I want to pick up player A or player B, who has the better projection, okay, and then we look at their underlying, and I'm player B seems a bit better there, so it kind of breaks the tie, that type of thing. So I'm always looking at them to answer the question, but I don't rely on them. I use them as sort of support.
I like that answer. I'm always looking at them too. I say I want to be that guy that doesn't look at them early on, but that would be a lie. I'm always looking at the stats. I'm always looking at the projections. I'm always looking at my league standings, especially because I love taking the early screenshots of being in first place and just harassing my league about it, even though it always bites me in the ass. So yeah, I'm always looking at it. I try not to read too much into things in terms of small sample stats until at least a few weeks have passed. I don't want to pass judgment on guys. unless there is something that I see in the performance, like if I'm watching a pitcher and the mechanics don't look right, and I'm seeing like, hey, he's not able to get into the zone the same way, or he's not hitting the glove the same way, that's when I start going, okay, maybe I'm starting to get worried about player X, because my eye test and the numbers are bearing the same thing, even if maybe I had them higher. But I'm also one of those guys that I start preparing for the season so early, right? Like my first set of rankings are done by Labor Day. That I don't want to throw 6 months worth of work out the window because of 7 days worth of games. And like I said, I've maybe sometimes been too passive and too conservative in that regard. But I also want to trust my process and trust, unless I see something either in the numbers or, while watching games or both, I don't want to throw out all that hard work. You didn't spend months worth of prep. And for listeners listening or reading to then go, Reed Detmers is a favorite of a lot of people. Like if Reed Detmers has 2 bad starts to start the year, like if you believed in Reed Detmers, like you shouldn't be just throwing him right out just because he had 2 bad starts. It's just 2 starts out of 32. So trust your process. Like if there's someone you're not super tied to, yeah, maybe 2 starts is enough. If Kyle Gibson has 2 bad starts to start off the year, I think it's fine to throw Kyle Gibson to the Wolves. But if you're a sleeper guy, or your guy that you're especially, I always will get the question, my 6th round pick started the season out 0 for 17. Should I drop him for this guy who has 2 home runs already? No, you should not do that. Please don't do that unless you're in the league with me.
For sure.
Let's do some predictions.
Yes.
Let's start with picking. Can't even talk. Start with picking division winners. Let's start with the AL East. Who do you have winning the AL East?
The Jays. It's got to be the Jays.
I'm with you. I think the Jays have really done a remarkable job. I would have liked to see the Jays go get Kimbrel and boost up that bullpen just a little bit more. But I mean, that rotation is better. That offense is amazing. I think, another year of Vladdy being Vladdy, and Bichette being Bichette, is gonna put them over the top this year. It doesn't feel like anybody else in that division got better. Which I think the Blue Jays did. So yeah, I'm with you on the Blue Jays. AL Central, who you got?
I mean, despite my knocking of them all this podcast, I guess I have to go White Sox. That just that lineup, the hitting lineup is so strong, and like Giolito and Cease and Kopech, like they're gonna. I think Hendricks closing it out. I think they're the class. I mean, the other teams are kind of on their way up. Twins are going to make an effort. Guardians. I mean, they're not going to be. They're always in it, but they're not going to be making a push. Kansas City's on the way up. I just think it's the White Sox. They're just a class above.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Tigers and the Royals and the Twins. I think spoiler, I think the Twins make the playoffs. But I don't think anybody's better, even with losing Lance Lynn. I don't think anybody's better in that division than the White Sox. AL West.
I went with the Astros. I just think I looked at the WAR, the depth charts on Fangraphs, and like they're way above the others. So I got to go with just what the math says and go with the Astros.
I'm gonna go surprise team here. I'm gonna say the Angels win that division. The Angels have a sneaky good team, and both Adele and Marsh look good in spring. If that rotation can stay healthy, and they made some really nice under the radar additions to that bullpen. I like the Angels a lot. I know that they're probably projected to finish 3rd or 4th in that division, probably 3rd now. But I like the Angels. I'm going to say they surprise and they win that division.
Yeah, I can see it for sure.
Then let's move on to the NL East. Who you got? This is a tough division.
I went Braves. I think they lost Freeman, but they got Olsen. Like they're deep hitting and pitching, I think. So I'm gonna go with the Braves.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Braves too. I'm tempted to go with Philadelphia here. I'd love to see the Mets win, but the Mets are the Mets. I mean, they're already having issues. Season hasn't even started yet, but the Braves are really, really good on paper, and they're going to get Acuna back pretty early on into the season. You know, at some point in May. I just think they're too loaded with talent from top to bottom. As much as I hated for my Will Smith shares that they signed Kenley Jansen, that made that bullpen even better. So yeah, I think the Braves are easily the team to beat in the obviously they won the World Series last year. I'm not betting against them. So AL or NL Central.
I went Brewers. I just think the three-headed monster of Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta is pretty tough to beat. Hader in the back of the pen if they keep him. The batting lineup is pretty solid, especially if Yelich can bounce back. But it's just the pitching is just so strong. So I'm sticking with the Brewers.
Yeah, I think the Brewers are easily the team to beat in the Central. No other team got better in the Central. A few teams got much worse. The Reds, I don't know. The Pirates got much worse. I think the Pirates are just bad. But the other teams did not challenge the Brewers. I don't understand why. I felt like the Cardinals were a couple key additions away from like maybe leapfrogging them. They just never pulled the trigger on any major deals. So yeah, Brewers. NL West.
Dodgers, gotta go Dodgers.
It hurts my soul. It hurts my soul to say this, but the Dodgers are just insanely talented on paper. Will it work? I mean, somehow the Giants were the better team last year in the regular season. As much as I love my Giants, I don't know that they can get to 107 wins again because I think the Dodgers won 104, 105 last year. Like they finished in second with 104, 105 wins. That's insane. I think the Giants obviously will take a step back in terms of win totals. I don't know that the Dodgers do. Like it would not surprise me to see the Dodgers win another 105 games. So taking the Dodgers. Who are your wild card teams in the American League? Get three of them.
So I did Yankees, Rays, and Red Sox. I did all AL East.
All AL East. Okay.
Yeah, so no Twins, no Mariners, no Angels. I just think that the Yankees are always going to be in it. The Red Sox are pretty solid. They got Story as well now, and then the Rays are always in it too. So I think they're going to be. It's going to be a big battle for the division, and the Jays are going to win, of course. But the other three are going to make it, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rays, Twins, and Mariners. I'm going to say only two teams in the AL East make the postseason. Yankees are super talented, but I don't love the way they have constructed this team. I just don't. It's still a ton of injury risk. They did not address another starter. They really need Severino to be bounce back and be really good. I just think they're missing pieces, and I think there are other teams that are kind of on the come up, like the Twins. And the Mariners that are going to pass them this year. And like I said, I don't know what the Red Sox are doing. I really, really don't get it at all. So I think both the Red Sox and the Yankees miss out. Mariners, Twins, and Rays get in. Who are your three NL wildcard teams?
I have Phillies, Padres, and Mets. No Giants. I think I know the Mets are going to find some way to screw it up, but I think they have a strong hitting lineup. Once DeGrom and Scherzer are like full health, they're going to just anchor that rotation. I just can't see I know the Giants. They know what they're doing. They do the platoons, and that kind of like screws up all the like the WAR calculations because they're maximizing the output of their hitters and all that, and the pitching staff's always does well. But I think I just got to go Mets over them.
All right. I agree with you on the Mets. The place I don't agree with you is the Padres.
Mhm.
The Padres just don't seem to put it all together, and they're already dealing with really bad injuries to Tatis, and Clevenger now back on the shelf. I just don't. I think I think what's going to happen is I think Preller is going to get fired after this year, and then they'll make the leap next year. So I'm taking the Giants, the Mets, and the Phillies as my wild card teams. But I think the Mets are really iffy. Like,
Mhm.
Obviously they need DeGrom back. They need Carrasco to kind of return to being a usable pitcher. They need Tyler Megill to kind of take a step. Like that rotation has the makings of something that could be really special or something that could be a complete disaster
Mhm.
in New
For
York.
sure.
I think the lineup's going to be good. I think the lineup in for the Mets are going to be good, but I'm a little worried about what that rotation is, kind of boom or bust. And I really don't know which way it's going to go. Relying on guys like Carrasco and Taiwan Walker, that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, no, very good point. I agree, but I still think they'll do it.
I hope so. I mean, I'm rooting. I don't want to see them knock out my Giants or anything like that, but I'm rooting for Mets. I'm rooting for the Mets. I'm rooting for the Mets fans. They deserve to have something nice once once a generation. All right, who wins the American League pennant and who wins the National League pennant?
So I got Jays against Dodgers. I had to say Jays. The Dodgers, I think, are just too strong. Like we said, the hitting's too good, the pitching's too good, the minor leagues are too good. Their budget is too high. It's they're just unstoppable. I think. So I have them winning the World Series too.
All
Sorry for the
right,
spoiler alert, but it's Dodgers over Jays.
I got the Dodgers versus the Jays as well, but I have the Jays winning the World
Yes, I
Series.
like it.
So I'm I think that the Jays are a really good team. I really love their rotation. I love what they've done there. That offense I think is just as good as the Dodgers offense. Um, and I hate the Dodgers, so I'm not going to pick them to win the World Series. I don't care what anybody tells me. All right, who are your AL and NL MVPs?
So I went Byron Buxton from the
Ooh,
Twins winning. Yeah, I just his Statcast in 2020 and 2021 last year were just so good, and when he was on the field, it was just so good. Like he could be 40 home runs, maybe not 20 stolen bases, but 15 stolen bases, 290, I think, with good defense. So and like the voters tend to look at WAR now. So I think Buxton is going to put it all together this year. At least I hope he does. I have him in a lot of leagues.
I have not drafted him anywhere because there's been no discount for his injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see him be good. I mean, it would hurt me in fantasy because like I said, I haven't drafted him anywhere. But I'd love to see what a full season of Byron Buxton looks like. I just can't pay for the price. My AL MVP is an oldie but a goodie. Give me Mike Trout. I haven't drafted him anywhere, but if the Angels are going to make the playoffs, it's going to be in the backs of Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. I don't know that the voters want to give Ohtani back-to-back MVPs, so I'm going to say if if the Angels are going to win the American League West, it's going to be because Trout stays healthy and is Mike Trout. So that's my AL. Who's your NL MVP?
I was torn between Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper, and I went Betts just because I think the Dodgers are going to win, and so they're going to want to pick someone from the Dodgers. So I went Betts. I think he's going to bounce back.
Yeah, Betts is mine as well. I think I know people are a little worried that he, dealt with injuries last year. He's looked healthy so far. I think he's going to be fine. And when you pick an MVP, typically you pick the best player on the best team. That's Mookie Betts.
That's right.
So, AL Cy Young.
So I wanted to pick a J, so it's Barrios or Gaussman or Manoah, and I'm going to go Manoah. I think I looked at his arsenal, and it's just so solid. Like the slider is so great, the fastball is so great, the sinker gets whiffs too. He's a fan favorite too. He feeds off the crowd. I think it's going to be Manoah. Well, I'm gonna pick Manoah. I don't think it's going to be Manoah, but I'm going to pick Manoah.
Nice. I like that call. I've got Manoah in a couple spots. I wouldn't be upset with that. I'm gonna go with Lucas Giolito. I think people forget, like, just he had a couple really bad starts, including that Boston Patriots Day start. But if you look past those couple bad starts, he was dominant last year. Like, he was really, really good. Just had a couple bumps in the road. I think he gets those smoothed out this year. And White Sox are gonna be really, really good. They need him to be an ace. I think he will be. So I'm going to go with Lucas Giolito as my Cy Young Award winner in the American League. What about the National League?
I'm going to go Corbin Burns. He was just so dominant last year, and I just don't see why he wouldn't be again this year. And I have the Brewers winning the division, so I'm just going to go Burns.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Burns too. I think he's just so good. I mean, his start, I think yesterday was absolutely unbelievable. He's already seems to be in midseason form. I think the Brewers are going to let him pitch deeper into the games this year. And I think, he's a guy that'll probably throw 180 or close to 200 innings and just be excellent the entire way as long as he's healthy. So, yeah, Corbin Burns, I think it's a pretty easy call. Who is your AL Rookie of the Year?
So, obviously, a lot of good options, but I'm going to go Torque. I'm going to go off book here just because of that comp thing I was talking about where, like, Sano had that incredible first 600 plate appearances, so why can't Torque do that too? He doesn't have the pressure that Julio Rodriguez and Bobby Witt probably have. He's kind of lower in the lineup. They're not relying on him as much, and so I'm going to go Torque.
I like that call. I'm going to go Bobby Witt just because it's easy, and I think of all the American League rookies, he's got the safest role. It's a team that I don't think is considering, like, I don't think they're they think they're competitors yet. I think they're probably, even in their own minds, like a year away, which gives him a long leash if he goes through some struggles. Whereas I think, I do think Torque and I do think Julio Rodriguez are going to be good right away. But I think they have to be good right away to keep, their spot in the lineups on teams that want to try to compete with these young teams. So I'm going to go Bobby Witt Jr. National League, who you got?
I went Seiya Suzuki. I assume he's eligible.
He is. Yeah, so it's a little bit cheating, but I mean, anytime these international imports, they have a little bit of a leg up because they're fully polished products. I agree. I think Seiya Suzuki, as much as I'd love to see my boy O'Neal Cruz win it, I think Suzuki's the easy call.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if you wouldn't let me pick him, I would have said probably Nick Lodolo, who I like a lot this year. He's in the rotation now. He has the pedigree. His StatCast was great too, so he could put up some good numbers.
Yeah, his teammate Hunter Green is going to be in that conversation too. I think Lodolo is a little bit more polished of a product, and I agree. If I was going to take a pitcher, I'd probably take Lodolo there, but I want it to be O'Neal Cruz. I hope it's O'Neal Cruz. Even though I took Suzuki somewhere recently, but Suzuki I think just has that leg up. Being such a polished product, the power looks like it's already going to play pretty well. If spring training has been any indication, so Suzuki's going to be fun to watch in Chicago, and I think they're just going to let him play. They didn't pay him to sit on the bench, so. All right, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me.
Not a problem. It was a lot of fun.
Remind everybody to reach on social media and then plug your work again.
So I'm at Prospects Live. My Twitter handle is __arrival. And yeah, we're doing a lot of cool stuff on the Dynasty side of Prospects Live. So join the Patreon.
Definitely do that. Follow Dylan on Twitter. Follow Prospects Live on Twitter too. A lot of great writers over there, great prospect analysts. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can follow Friends of Fantasy Benefits on Twitter at Fantasy Benefits. You can read my work. I'm writing daily at Fangraphs, and I'm on the Sleeper in the Bus podcast, obviously this podcast, and TGFBI podcast. That will do it for us. For Dylan and myself, thank you for listening. Have fantastic